Welcome to Out Motorsports, the channel for cars as you are. My name is Jake and I'm here with our first ever Volvo press loan. This is a 2022 Volvo XC60 Recharge. The XC60 is Volvo's most popular model here in the United States, and Volvo sent one over for me to take a look at. Now, this is not a brand new vehicle. The XC60 in this iteration has been on sale since about 2016. However, in mid-2022, Volvo did make some pretty big updates in 3 different ways. So that's why these are kicking around for us to drive, and this being my first Volvo, they wanted to send over the most popular model first for me to take a look at. So let's talk about what's new for 2022, what makes this model in particular kind of interesting, that's the Recharge part of it all, and then we'll get out on the road and talk about how it is to drive. Okay, so 3 big things that are new for 2022 and by association 2023 for the Volvo XC60. The first being the styling. Volvo made some slight tweaks to the styling on the exterior of the 2022 and 2023 XC60. The second big thing that they did is the infotainment system. They updated the infotainment system to run on Android Automotive. That's not Android Auto like your Android smartphone would power. It is actually a Google-based software that will run the entire car's automotive operating system. So if you've looked at or driven a Polestar, which those are related to Volvo tangentially, those were the first vehicles of the Volvo Polestar lineup to start using Android Automotive, and now Volvo themselves has put it in the XC60. So you have Apple CarPlay, you have Android Auto, but you've also got a really nice system that runs Google Maps in your dashboard. It's an easy to use system with your general infotainment setup, and it is very nice overall. For 2022 and 2023, Volvo has made every model in their lineup some sort of hybrid. So you've got some of them that are going to be just kind of a regular pre-AC hybrid where you don't plug it in, it's just always doing hybrid things on its own. But these Recharge models in particular are going to be plug-in hybrids. So for 2022 and 2023, the XC60 Recharge range went up to 35 miles. That's a big deal when you've got a plug-in hybrid where you're looking to drive it day to day on just the battery and then use the gas engine for longer road trips. So then that begs the question, what all is exactly powering the XC60 Recharge? Well, under the hood, you've got the same basic 2-liter 4-cylinder engine that's kind of been the backbone of every Volvo for a few years now. Now, in previous model years, these were both supercharged and turbocharged, which sounds like a whole bag of fun. But in this case, it's just going to be turbocharged, and that is good for 313 horsepower and 295 pound-feet of torque. Now that is ultimately not that interesting, so let's talk about all the recharge-y bits, because you've got this plug right up here, which is just a typical level 2 plug. There's no DC fast charging because the battery is not that big. But like I said, there is extra range, and they got that by increasing the battery size. So where is everything going when you plug this thing in? Well, it's going to that battery, and that battery is in the center tunnel of the XC60 Recharge. So these platforms were designed from the get-go to have batteries going on in the middle of the car. It is an 18.7 kilowatt hour battery, of which 14.3 of that is usable, which gets you that rated 35 miles of range. Now that is feeding an electric motor that is located only on the back axle. So when this thing is in electric only mode, it is a rear wheel drive Volvo. That's kind of neat. Now the other big deal with the XC60 Recharge for 2022 and 2023 is that Volvo upped the power and torque on this electric motor. So a lot of the complaints I've heard with other plug-in hybrids is that in electric only mode, they're kind of sluggish, which is the case because those electric motors can be pretty slow. I mean, 90 horsepower, which is not a lot to move something this big. Now, in prior model years, the Recharge model of this XC60 was indeed only 87 horsepower, but for the new model year, it is rated at 143 horsepower and 228 pound-feet of torque. So we'll talk about how that actually feels when we're behind the wheel here in just a second, but it's nice to see some actual usable power and torque figures for that electric-only driving mode. Now, when we're talking about charging and charging speed, obviously these cars are not meant to be driven 24/7 on just the battery, so they're not going to do DC fast charging like I mentioned, but you still want to know how fast this thing can charge if the battery is completely flat. Now, obviously, charging speeds can be slower, the battery is smaller, it's all kind of relative, but in this case, the onboard charger of the XC60 Recharge can accept juice at about 3.7 kilowatts. That's not super fast. The level 2 chargers you'll experience out in public can usually do up to 7.2 kilowatts, but if you've got a charger in your garage or at your home to charge this overnight, or say where you work has chargers in the parking lot like where I am now, this will be fully charged in about 4 to 5 hours. So it's fine while you're at work, it's fine if you're home overnight, and the theory with a car like this is that you start every day with a full battery. So 35 miles every day on that battery pack alone. Now, we've talked about the power from the front, we've talked about the power from the rear. Now, all of those combine to give you 455 horsepower and 523 pound-feet of torque in tandem when everything's working together, when you've got your foot in the carpet. So is this a fast Volvo on paper? Absolutely. It is very, very quick. I've seen 0 to 60 figures between 4.5 and 5 seconds, kind of in the reported range, which is honestly pretty astounding for any brand new car, let alone a Volvo family crossover-y wagon thing. So let's unplug this charger. Let's give you a quick tour of the interior and talk through some drive modes, and then we'll get this on the road and talk about how it actually is to drive. All right, so let's take a tour of the Volvo XC60 Recharge. So the first thing you'll notice in here are the seats. These are optional on the top trim level of the XC60, and these are a wool seat, which is really, really interesting. I love that you've got an option that isn't leather. There are 3 different leather options for color, but if you want something different, these are wool. They are very, very comfortable. They have an extendable thigh bolster, which I love. They have adjustable lumbar, of course, and it's just a really neat look. The whole interior is just that wool kind of trim going on, and that's paired to a black dashboard and this color wood trim, which is textured and really, really lovely. Now, hopping inside, you've got 2 different screens going on. The first being this guy here, which is your gauge cluster screen. And this is showing all this charging detail right now because I still have the car plugged in. So the battery's at 34%, that gives us 11 miles of range. And it's telling us that it'll complete charging in several hours. It's about 4 hours from now. But the range with the gas tank is another 260 miles. So obviously we've got plenty of driving we can do. Now, looking over here at this screen, this is the same screen that Volvo's had for a little while, but like I said, now running Android Automotive. So if you go to the maps, it just loads Google Maps, and the car is connected. So of course, you can just use the Google Assistant and talk to the car, and it will put everything both here or in this gauge cluster screen. I'll show you that in just a second if you would like it there as well. Now, pushing that home button takes you back to the home screen. It does have Apple CarPlay, though it is wired only, but that I'm okay with because this car has the fabulous Bowers & Wilkins sound system. So you've got a bunch of speakers. They're really pretty to look at, first of all, but frankly, it is a really, really, really good sound system. This is one of the best I've heard in a car in the last few years. I would put this on the same tier as Burmester from Mercedes-Benz and certain Mark Levinson systems from Lexus. It's a very expensive option. It's $3,200, and you can only get it on the top trim level of the XC60, but if you're an audiophile, it is worth it. It does require you plugging in for the best sound quality, as does any premium sound system, but if you care about sound, you should be doing that anyway with lossless audiophiles in the first place. So, other interior bits, let's flip back around. Like I said, you've got all this lovely wood going on across the dashboard. Looking further down, this is a very touch-reliant car with all of your controls here, but you do have some hard controls here. Volume knob, play pause, track controls, which I love, and then your defrost. Now there's a couple buttons here that, you know, could be used for something. I wish we could use them for drive modes, because to access the drive modes, you have to tap settings, and then you have to tap driving, and then you have all these drive modes to pick from. That's a lot to deal with while you're moving, and if you get a text or something from a friend on CarPlay, it will interrupt the screen to pull up the CarPlay screen and show you everything. So kind of an irritation, but at least they're easy enough to understand once you do load this screen. Now looking further down into the interior, this is the optional crystal shift lever, shift knob. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of it. It's Orifers, I believe, but it is a crystal shifter. This is an option, of course, that comes on those top trim models, and it's very pretty, if nothing else. It's just a nice little touch. Looking further back, you have your twist to start. This is something you don't push. It's a twist like that. And then further back, just your parking brake and your auto hold. You do have a wireless charging mat right here, a little bitty storage thingy going on here with space for a charging port if you need it for a radar detector or something, a couple cup holders, and then your little armrest storage. Other nice thing going on, it is very airy in this cabin because of the panoramic sunroof that is very large and goes all the way over the second row of seats. Now, let's talk about these drive modes in particular, because there are 5 of them and then 2 other options going on below those. Okay, so drive modes, you've got 5 of them here. You've got hybrid, power, pure, off-road, and constant all-wheel drive. So hybrid is exactly what you would expect. Hybrid will just have the car do its thing between the gas motor and the electric motor as it needs to. If you go to power, that will have everything running all the time, and it changes your steering feel in particular. So you get all of that 455 horsepower as much as possible. Now pure is the fun one. Pure is your full electric driving mode. So you can put the car in pure and it will rely on just the electric motor until you have either drained the battery entirely, or if you put your foot all the way in the floor into the kickdown, it will also change into the hybrid mode at that point. Now the nice thing is there is a little toggle here, so you can tell the car I want to always start in pure, so that if I'm plugging in every night, it will just always start that way, so that when I go to work or run my errands, it's always in full electric mode. You've got your off-road mode, which activates hill descent control and will change your steering effort again. And then you've got constant all-wheel drive, which will, again, optimize the all-wheel drive system for some off-road driving or some lack of traction sort of driving. I've been driving the car largely in hybrid, but then you've also got a couple other modes below that. So your battery usage here, you've got auto, hold, and charge. Now, the three things here, auto with your battery usage is going to be what it says. It's just going to manage the battery's power as it can. Hold is going to hold the battery's state of charge at whatever it is so that the car doesn't use it. That's usually used in Europe right now. Certain cities, if you're driving into the city center, you need to be on only battery power in certain vehicles. So that will hold the battery's charge at whatever it is, and then you can turn it back to pure mode and it will be at whatever you left it at. And then charge, if you turn that on, will actually force the gas engine to run, and it will act as a generator while you're driving, so that you can add juice to the battery without plugging in. Now, it does not do this very quickly. I did have it going the entire time I was coming out to this point to film and to charge the car, and it added about 8 miles of range in 25 minutes of driving. Now, granted, I was already planning on driving, so yay, I got some charge out of the car. On the downside, it kills your fuel economy compared to running the car as a hybrid. It was saying I was averaging about 18 miles a gallon on the drive out here. This car is rated, if you're running it in regular hybrid mode, at 28 miles a gallon combined between city and highway. So it does kind of kill it because, you can't cut the gas motor off at stoplights or at certain, flat highway speeds when normally the electric motor could take over and just run as a hybrid. So, is it the best thing ever? No, it's a nice option to have. But really, if you're driving one of these, you need to have somewhere where you can plug it in every night and charge it and use it on the battery power or have it juiced up. There's really no point in buying this car if you just plan to run it as a regular hybrid and never plug it in. All right, so let's talk about driving the 2022 and objectively 2023 Volvo XC60 Recharge. So I've got the car in hybrid mode. What's interesting to note here is that there's a little gas icon, it looks like a drop of fuel, in what would be a tachometer, and it moves around and it shows you in hybrid mode, or even if you're in pure mode, it shows you at what point you will engage the gas engine, if there is, of course, battery power to help you out. So in pure mode, it goes basically to 100%, which means unless you're giving it full throttle, you're gonna be battery only. If you put it in hybrid mode, that will then drop down and it shows you, okay, in this case, it's at like 55% is where it's gonna start kicking in the gas motor. Now, I'm gonna slow down a little bit so I can do this and not be going a million miles an hour. I'm gonna go ahead and ramp up. Now I've got the gas engine engaged and you hear it kick on and pick up. This is a very quick car. It's deceptively quick. This is not a fast, sporty vehicle. It's not intended to be, but if you just kind of put your foot down 50, 60, 70% of the way and that gas motor comes on and the turbo spools, it is going to just keep on moving. It's kind of freight train feeling, but in like a very calm, soothing way. It's very nice. Now, I have caught the gas motor off guard exactly one time in my driving with this thing over the course of a week, where the gas motor came on and the turbo wasn't really spooled and it kind of came on and then kicked me back a little bit late. That was a little strange to me, but otherwise it's been very smooth. The transition from hybrid or electric only to gas has been really great. And it's just a nice drivetrain to use. I really, really like it. Plenty of power and torque. No complaints about the drivetrain in particular. I've got this in the B mode for the transmission, which stands for brake versus drive, and that gives you regenerative braking. That works in hybrid mode or in pure mode, which is really, really cool. On this back road that I'm on, obviously no one buying an XC60 thinks that they're gonna be like backroads blasting and having like the best time ever, but the car is fairly buttoned up. It is a suspension that errs a little bit on the side of sport versus total comfort. It's not mushy, it's not soft, there's not a ton of body roll. It feels pretty good. It's not sporty, and where that comes into play is really with the steering and the tires. The steering is, you know, heavy via added force feedback, but it's not really providing a ton of feel. And if I put the car in power mode, does it amp up, you know, the steering feel and everything? Okay, yeah, a teeny bit. It just really adds a little bit of weight. It's not giving me much otherwise. The steering is probably my least favorite part of the car, just from a overall package sort of deal, but for most buyers doing most things, it's entirely accurate and fine. It's just a little bit light. There is grip. The tires on this car are a set of Continental All Seasons that I don't think offer a ton of feedback. So point being, while you have grip, especially in the rain, I noticed this, I had plenty of grip. It didn't really feel the most confidence inspiring from the front end. It felt a little bit light, a little bit just unsure of what I was gonna get, but I knew that if I held my steering input, held my throttle input, the car would go where it was pointed. And then as far as other non-driving things going on in here, overall visibility is fantastic. There's a ton of light coming in. The windows offer pretty decent greenhouse as far as their height. The dash is nice and low. I am okay with the two screens in this car. They're not too razzle-dazzle. I'm really okay with the size of the center screen for all the infotainment and car controls. Some of those numbers queens are gonna say, oh, it has to be bigger, widescreen, I can't believe they didn't do whatever. This is fine, this is all you need. Nothing you don't, I really, really like it. The seats, like I said, are tremendously comfortable. I really, really enjoyed these seats, and I like the wool. I think I would get the wool, just because it's interesting and different. Like, leather is so boring and whatever. But other than that, the sound system is phenomenal. The interior vibe is very minimalist. It's very, chic and very just everything you need, nothing you don't, which I really appreciate. I do wish there was a physical button for the drive modes, because that is the one thing where it's too much tapping going on in the center screen. And then the only other thing left to really talk about here is the price. This one being fully loaded, being that T8 fully loaded Recharge with every option basically stuck to it, is about $75,000. It's up to you whether you think that's worth it or not. I really love the car. I have really grown to like this over the week I've been driving it. Do I think it's worth 75 grand? I don't know. I think I would have a much easier time at 65. Build quality has generally been very good in here. The materials are very nice. There's a lot to love about it that does make it feel pretty close to that price. Maybe I'd be okay at 70. If you cut some of the options off, if you took away the Bowers & Wilkins, you still get Harman Kardon audio, which I'm sure is fine. Bowers & Wilkins to me would be a non-negotiable. I would want to have it, but generally I think it's really nice in here. Just 75 grand is a lot of money for any car, and this is not blowing my mind for 75 grand. So like I said, I think 65-ish, maybe 70, I'd feel a little more comfortable. But in any case, there's a lot to like about the XC60 Recharge, especially the plug-in hybrid bit. I think the PHEV version of this is absolutely the way to go if you have somewhere to plug it in every night and if you promise to use it as a plug-in hybrid and just not a regular hybrid. If you're just going to use it as a regular hybrid, Volvo will sell you a model that doesn't have the plug on the side for less money. All right, and that is it for this review of the 2022 and honestly 2023 Volvo XC60 Recharge. Thank you so much for coming along. As always, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe right here on YouTube. Give us a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Out Motorsports, and head over to outmotorsports.com if you'd like to join a growing community of LGBT automotive enthusiasts and motorsports competitors. We have a whole community over there. We're doing events in person and online. We would love to have you join for any and all of that. Till next time, please stay safe, be well, see you again soon.